Go. Hey, yo, what it is and what's good, y'all? Welcome back to 280 Plus, the social media podcast where I take the conversations off the timeline and go beyond the tweets. I'm your host, Los Def, and I'm back here for episode 181. You know what I'm saying? We got a jam-packed episode for y'all today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl, right? We're going to talk about the game, a little bit about the game, right? But unfortunately, the game was overshadowed. It was overshadowed by the halftime show, and we're going to maybe talk about the implications of that and why that might not be a good thing, because everybody's talking about what happened at the halftime show. We did this last year too. We talked about the halftime show, man, and we're going to maybe make a little bit of a comparison there. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about some of these things that have been going on with President Trump and this new organization that he's created. This, it's not really a department, but it is in his mind with his boy Elon Musk, and we're going to talk about Doge. And just in general, we're not going to get into like a line item of all the things that they've been trying to cut, but we're going to just talk about just the implications of that and where we could be kind of going the wrong way with some of these things. We're going to talk a little bit about AI, talk about AI. AI is a conversation all the time, man, because the AI is here. We've been talking about AI on this podcast probably for over a year, maybe a year and a half now, maybe even going on 2 years. You know what I'm saying? And so we're gonna introduce and talk about some of those type of topics there, especially when it comes to ChatGPT's lead competitor, which is called DeepSeek AI. We're going to talk a little bit about that and why, although there was a lot of talk about it being so great, there's been studies and reports that shows that maybe we need to go back to the drawing board, or maybe OpenAI, ChatGPT doesn't have really much to worry about in that department, right? So we are going to touch on that a little bit, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about the MVP race and who got honored, Josh Allen winning the MVP. And then we are going to touch a little bit on an update on the Mavericks trade, Lakers trade, Luka and AD, where we're at after a week, about a week and a half now, almost 2 weeks after that trade. Where are we at right now, and what does it look like going forward? And then, yes, we are going to touch on an interview that kind of took place on the Breakfast Club featuring a rapper, plus size rapper named Dank Demoss, and just some of the things that her narratives that she's been talking about, because she was the lady that a Lyft driver refused to pick her up because of her size, right? So we're going to try to touch on a little bit of this stuff. Some of the topics we're going to kind of probably go a little bit overboard on, but we're going to try to jam all this in together into a great show for y'all. But if you're new to the channel, I'd like you to hit that subscribe button right now. Please hit that subscribe button. Let's keep the algorithm tight. Leave a comment below. It helps the channel. Give me a like. If you know anybody that's into this kind of conversation, or if you think I'm talking crazy and you're like, yo, check this dude out, man, like, listen what he got to say, please share the content. But yeah, man, I'm excited about this, but I'm also sad. So we are going to get into the Super Bowl first. And the reason why I'm sad is because the Super Bowl is the end of the season, man. And it marks the end of the best league's season, which is the NFL. It's been a good run. We started back in August, right, with preseason and everything like that. And now, the season's over. The Super Bowl has been played, and we got a new Super Bowl champion. So I'm not proud to say this, but I would say we got to give props where they do, because we not sore losers and all this whatever. But let's first give a shout out and a congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles, because they won the Super Bowl and they stopped the Kansas City Chiefs three-peat. The only team in the last couple of years that has had a chance to actually three-peat, they could not do it. They could not do it. There was a lot of talk about, the word 3P getting trademarked, and the Chiefs were looking to kind of get into that sweepstakes and trying to stamp their legacy. They'll be the only team to pull that off in NFL history. Patrick Mahomes would have been the only quarterback to pull that off in NFL history, and it was nothing, man. But the Super Bowl, man, just in general, man, it was a blowout, man. It was probably, man, it ranks probably among some of the lower end of all the Super Bowl games that have been kind of played. And it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And I think this is why we kind of focus a little bit on this halftime show and everybody's up in arms about it. But the game was trash. Let's just start with that. The game was trash. Now, if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan, you're excited about the Super Bowl. That is exactly what you want. If you're an Eagle fan, that's exactly what you hoped for. I'm pretty sure that if you were an Eagle fan, you probably were comfortable throughout that whole Super Bowl. Now, I did talk to some Eagle fans because I am in Eagle country. I am in Pennsylvania. And so, like, yes, on one hand, I feel good for because I have most of my family lives in Philadelphia, right? So like probably about 90% of my family, and by and large, if we talk about my whole family, about 90% of my family lives in Philadelphia. So I am kind of happy for them. My brother is from Philadelphia, right? And he was down there. He does some photography. He was out there on the streets getting some street photos right there in the mix. So like it does give you a sense of pride a little bit. If you're talking to some outer towners, some outer staters, and they want to talk about football, they would just assume that I'm probably an Eagles fan, and I'm not gonna pump fake. I'm not gonna act like I'm an Eagles fan or anything like that. But in a way, it does give your area a sense of pride. But as a football fan, I was disappointed, right? Especially because my team was in the playoffs and my team was the first our team was the first barrier between the Eagles and the Super Bowl run, and we couldn't get it done. The Rams couldn't beat them. The Commanders damn sure couldn't beat them. And then and then we see in the Super Bowl the team that we thought that, like, hey, this team has won like 17 games this year, close games, you know what I'm saying? Like they won almost all their games by a low margin. And we thought maybe, yeah, this is the team. This is the team that could probably beat them. And the Eagles showed up and showed us that, like, nah, the Chiefs are pretenders. The Chiefs are pretenders. When I look at that, when I watched that Super Bowl, the all I could think about was how much better the Bills would have done, against the Eagles, right? Or how much more competitive of a game it could have been. How much more competitive of a game it could have been if the Ravens would have made it, right? And then obviously, when you think about the NFC, it makes you think, dang, what if the Lions could have beat the Commanders? What would that NFC Championship game would have looked like? So it's a lot of questions. But if we get into the game itself, the final score was 40-22. And although that looks like it's, that's a three-score game, and it doesn't look like it's by that much, it doesn't look like a big victory, but it was a huge victory because most of those 22 points came in garbage time, right? So if we talk about the game itself, man, the Eagles had an amazing game plan. They had an amazing game plan, and everybody was worried about Saquon Barkley. Everybody was worried about him getting off, right? But then, especially with his running ability, but then they forgot that the Eagles have almost like another running back, another, high caliber running back, which is their quarterback, which is Jalen Hurts. And I think they forgot that, hey, you might be able to contain Saquon Barkley, or if you can contain Saquon Barkley, you're gonna have to beat us in other. You're gonna, you know, you're gonna have to beat us in other ways. And the Eagles showed like, hey man, this plan is foolproof. So that was the fear about them getting Saquon Barkley, was the fact that like, yo, Saquon Barkley is the type of player that kind of puts them into position to go all the way. Because if we look at Super Bowl 57, when they played the Chiefs the first time, that's when they had Miles Sanders, right? They still had Kenneth Gainwell, and their leading rusher in that game in Super Bowl 57 was Jalen Hurts, right? He rushed for 3 touchdowns in that Super Bowl. He didn't pat. He had like over 300 yards passing. He had almost maybe 100 yard, almost 100 yards on the ground, but he had 3 rushing touchdowns. It was that fumble and maybe some calls that maybe cost them the game. That was a high scoring game, though. That was a 38 to 35 game. This was the complete opposite, right? So coming into that game, man, um, I thought it was a good decision that the Chiefs deferred, right? It's like, yeah, you got to see what they're working with, right? You got to see what they're working with. And the Chiefs defense early on, they were making some plays, they were making some stops. It was the offense, though. It was the Chiefs' offense that could not get off the ground. So, although Jalen Hurts was the MVP and he had an amazing game, you have to tip your hat off to the Eagles' defense. And the Eagles, they've been quietly building this defense, right? They've been building this defense in the draft, right? They've been fortunate to get some draft picks and through trades and kind of finessing some teams, and they got an amazing front four, right? They end up picking up a guy like Zach Bond, who nobody really knew what he was really about. They have some other linebackers that kind of fill the void and do their thing, because their defense last year was bottom third, probably like bottom five for real, and in the league. And they shored up all those holes, all those different areas on their team that were lacking. They kind of filled those holes up, and their defense just dominated. They made Patrick Mahomes look really regular, right? Patrick Mahomes looked really regular. He did not look like a former Super Bowl MVP or the league MVP. He just looked like a guy out there, right? And it started out early, and the Eagles didn't even blitz. The Eagles did not even blitz much. They were just killing the Chiefs at the point of attack. They were killing them in the trenches, and they had Patrick Mahomes just looking real nervous and skittish, and they couldn't move the ball. They had so much struggles moving the ball. They couldn't get first downs, right? And then then they started getting turnovers. They started getting turnovers. Um, the Eagles had like a 10-point lead, right? They had a 10-point lead. It was 10-0. But you're feeling like, okay, this is when the Chiefs play well from behind. They sometimes they start slow and they play well from behind. And we've seen that all season, right? We've seen teams, now not teams as good as the Eagles, but we've seen teams like not be able to put them away. So then there's a drive. I think it's the second quarter at this point. And you're excited. You're thinking like, all right, the Chiefs, all right, you gotta turn up now. This is your time. And then Patrick Mahomes, man, throws a very uncharacteristic pick six. Right, he throws an uncharacteristic pick six to Cooper DeJean, the rookie. So this all that does is give the Eagles confidence. They're like, oh man, we killing y'all with our rookie pick six, right? The Chiefs get the ball back. Yeah, the Chiefs get the ball back. I don't think they do nothing with it at that point. And then there was a defensive possession where again the Chiefs defense is doing good, but then they made a bad mistake. So everybody was worried about calls because there was early in the game there was a pass interference called against the Eagles, an offensive pass interference, and people was thinking there was a lot of Eagle fans thinking like, "Yo, here we go, here we go. This is. I mean, these calls." But then what happened was, it wasn't the Chiefs didn't benefit from any calls or anything like that. What happened was the Chiefs started making very uncharacteristic mistakes. So although they were down 17 nothing, right? Although they were down 17 nothing, what killed them though was at this point they're down 17-0. There was a penalty by Nick Bolden, right? It was the dumbest thing that he could do. So the Chiefs again, they got a couple sacks. They had the Eagles. It was like second and 26, second and 29, something long like that. So and they get pressure, right? They kind of get the stop. And then what happens is Nick Bolden gets called for unnecessary roughness, and for whatever reason, he decided to give Saquon Barkley a late hit, right? And he didn't harm him, he didn't hurt him or anything like that, but it looked forceful, it looked unnecessary for sure. It was rough and it looked unnecessary. And that penalty kept that drive alive. Now, the Chiefs defense again, they made some stops and they forced them to punt. Here's the problem though, right? Because this was a field position game. This was a field position game. So anytime early on in the game when the Chiefs was getting the ball, they were getting it inside their own territory. So like, when the Eagles were scoring, it was like, okay, now you get a reset. You get a reset, you can kind of start whatever. Well, they do get a stop. And again, they're in bad field position. They're at the 6 yard line. They're at the 6 freaking yard line. And you're thinking, like, all right, I don't know what the Chiefs got to do, but they got to put together a drive. Like, they got to dink and dunk us, whatever they got to do. And what does Patrick Mahomes do? He sees a guy in the middle of the field. He thinks he's got him, right? He's wide open. But Zach Bond, probably the MVP of their defense, of especially this year. Zach Bond made the most athletic interception, right, by a middle linebacker in the biggest game of the season. He gets an interception right in the Chiefs' own territory. And the Eagles get it at like the 14-yard line. They score, and basically the half is pretty much over. And we go into halftime 24-0, right? 24-0. So automatically, because I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I'm rooting for the Chiefs. A lot of people did not want the Chiefs to win. I'm rooting for the Chiefs. But once it was 10-0, I was like, all right, 17-0. I said, yo, if they don't score, if they don't make it 17-7, if they don't answer, it's over. They didn't answer. And even worse, they gave up another touchdown. So going into halftime, 24-0, for real, the Super Bowl was over to me. It was over by halftime, for real. Even though the Chiefs get the ball back, it's like, yo, going in there 24-0, it's not a good look. Not a good look. We are going to talk about the halftime show because the halftime show overshadowed the game because there wasn't much of a game. Coming into the third quarter and coming into the third quarter, it's still kind of tight. It's still kind of tight, but then the Eagles kind of busted open and they put up 10 more points, and it's 34 to nothing before the Chiefs even score. Now, it was 34 nothing. Once the Eagles made it 34 nothing, and matter of fact, I think once they made it 27 nothing, once they hit that field goal, I said, yeah, this game is definitely over. Like, I know everybody's looking at the Patriots Falcons game from the past and they're thinking like, yo, 25-point deficit. I'm like, well, yeah, it's a 27-point deficit. It's over. I said to my son, I said, yo, because it was like nine, it was already like 9 o'clock at that point. I said, yeah, let's play some 2K. So I turned off the game. I mean, because the halftime, we seen the halftime show, turn off the game. It didn't matter what it was. And then the Eagles scored again. So it was 34 nothing before the Chiefs even scored. So in terms of the game, it's not much to really talk about other than just domination, right? Like, you can't take anything away from the Eagles, right? There was no controversial calls to where it swayed against them or not. The Chiefs end up mustering up some points and putting some things together, and obviously they scored 3 touchdowns. And so in the second half, in the fourth quarter or whatever, second half, I guess they kind of won the second half, but it was too little, too late, too little, too late. So the Eagles only scored 6 more points to end the game, and the Chiefs end up scoring 22 points. Key things in the game, though. Key things in the game definitely has to be the Eagles game plan and how they schemed. And I don't know if the Chiefs just thought that they were just gonna walk in there and do whatever they want. They weren't creative on offense like they normally were. Like a lot of times they would do a lot of exotic formations. They would do a lot of misdirections and just in the first meeting, Andy Reid definitely outcoached the Eagles and Nick Sirianni. But in this game, it was the total opposite. They had the perfect game plan. Now, Saquon Barkley, every time he got the ball, I was like you're just taking a deep breath. You're like what's about to happen? What's about to happen? And for the most part, they contained him. I think, Saquon Barkley had like an 8-yard run at one point in time, maybe a 10-yard run, and it was exciting. But it was like, all right, but that was probably like his longest run in the game. Saquon Barkley had like 22 carries for 57 yards. He averaged 2.3 yards per carry, didn't score a touchdown or anything like that. And when you hold Saquon Barkley to 57 yards, if you just look at the box score, you're thinking, oh, that's a game that the Eagles are going to lose. That's a game that you have to win, but they couldn't because they couldn't stop the Eagles passing game because AJ Brown was kind of getting loose. Anytime they would kind of hone in on AJ Brown, they would hit Goddard with a pass. Devontae Smith was doing his thing. Even Jahan Dotson woke up. He was getting some burn, in which in the playoffs, Jahan Dotson's name has been getting called a little bit. But the Eagles showed that their offensive line and their weapons were just too much for everybody. And we all knew that. We all knew that going into this season and even the moves that they were making. We all knew that, but we didn't fully see it, because there was a lot of teams that were still competing well against the Eagles. A lot of teams were still holding their own. The Packers, beginning of the season, they held their own against the Eagles. They lost by 5 points. It was a 35-29 game. You know what I'm saying? There were some other teams. We had an upset. We had an upset or two, or in the regular season. But the Eagles, they definitely had the roster. Now, will they repeat? Who knows? You know what I mean? Eagle fans, if you're feeling like, yo, everybody hates us, well, that's kind of what it is. You know what I mean? When you're the Super Bowl champs, you get the luxury and benefit of being hated and everybody game planning for you and everybody trying to take their best shot at you. So um again, man, the game was the game, man. It was pretty weak overall. It the game had like a weird energy to it because it was completely one-sided and it was not fun to watch. Like, and again, if you're an Eagles fan, you had a great time, but like just as a cat, even if you're a casual fan, you're like, oh, this is the Super Bowl, this is the big deal, you know? And but yeah, it was sad. It was sad. It was weak. It was weak. So yeah, man, Eagles looking to repeat in the next couple of weeks. We're gonna talk about free agency and everything like that. They got some players that they got to try to resign. Zach Bond, that's the main guy. Zach Bond is the piece that they want to keep, but I'm wondering because Zach Bond was like it was lucky that they got him. Well, it wasn't lucky that they got him. It was lucky that he produced to the ability that he produced. Right, he outperformed all expectations. He's like on a 1-year contract, and so the question is like, is he gonna ask for top dollar and like kind of get what he feels like he deserves? And can the Eagles match whatever contract, that he's worth? Or or is he the type of player that's like, nah, I'll take less money because I want to play for a winner and I want to keep this thing going. For me, for my sake, I'm hoping that he looks for greener pastures and he feels like, yo, I got my ring, I got my all pro. You know what I'm saying? I accomplished more than what I probably expected to accomplish in my career. I can go somewhere else and be the man, or he could be a part of the machine. So that's the question. That's the question. They got a lot of their core pieces are coming back, but obviously, just like anybody, it's hard to keep all your players whenever you win a Super Bowl. Everybody's talking about AJ Brown maybe wanting to trade, maybe going to another team, probably wanting to go to the Patriots because Mike Vrabel was over there. So all of those different things, like all that stuff is going to shake out. But for right now, it looks like the Eagles are in shape to get back at least to the Super Bowl, or at the very least to be a formidable team. The Lions, people are probably hoping that they reload. I'm hoping that the Packers reload, and that we can compete, but only time will tell. Only time will tell. I'm not into moral victories, right? Because Jay-Z said moral victories are for minor league coaches. Like basically, like there's no time, there's no space or time for that in the NFL. But when I look at the playoffs and I'm thinking like, damn, the Packers had the closest game against the Eagles, right? They beat us by like what, 12 points? Something like that. It was like 22 to 10. And it was controversial, right? Controversial fumble at the beginning of the game. There was some weird, all the injuries that the Packers, suffered through. The Packers, like they didn't score that many points, but they had a pretty close game. The Rams were the team that was able to score the most on the Eagles, and they were the ones that gave the Eagles the most fits in terms of defense. Like, Verse was, yeah, he was killing the Eagles. You know what I'm saying? But what I mean? That only takes you so far, man, those moral victories. But congratulations again, man, to the Eagles, man. I can't hate. I can't hate. They did their thing. They did what a lot of people expected them to do. Even I looked at them as a Super Bowl contender once they got Saquon. And yeah, man, we'll see. We'll see where it goes though. But let's switch it up though. Let's switch it up. Let's talk about what we here to talk about. Say now it wasn't just we didn't just come here to talk about the halftime show, but we are obviously going to talk about the Super Bowl halftime show. Now, yo, I wanted to give a rapid reaction, but at the same time, when I was watching the Super Bowl halftime show, I was trying to gather my thoughts. You know, and I was wondering how people felt about it because I had my initial thoughts, and then I was seeing the reactions, right? So Super Bowl halftime show. We got Kendrick Lamar. Now, going into this, right? A lot of people wanted Lil Wayne to be the performer because they felt like, oh, it's in New Orleans, so we need to have homegrown talent because the previous year Usher is from Atlanta and he performed there. Um, not the year before that, but the year before that, right? So like 3 or 4 years ago, we had the Super Bowl in LA, and we had Dr. Dre. So like we've had, in the last four Super Bowls, including Super Bowl 59, we have had some artists be from the hometown of where the Super Bowl is hosted. Now that's not a norm. Like we don't expect that um natives automatically get Super Bowl, performances, right? But I think, so now that Jay-Z's running it and we are getting more rappers and black acts, right? Black artists are being in hip hop and R&B, that are not just like super mainstream, like on the level of like Beyonce or something like that. We are getting all these other artists that are getting to perform. So we just kind of assume like, well, why not? Why not? A lot of people were thinking though, like Wayne probably wouldn't be the best pick, right? So when Kendrick Lamar gets picked, we all knew it was because of his success in 2024. It was because of Drake. It was because of the Drake beef. It was because of Not Like Us. It was because of everything that he built on, right, this year. Now, my thing, right? Shout out to the amazing pod, right? Because I this is where I was able to kind of talk about what I thought about them picking Kendrick Lamar. And when I was on the Amazing Pod, my whole argument was the fact that I said I do not think Kendrick Lamar has the catalog to hold down a Super Bowl, right? Because here's the thing, when we think about Super Bowls, we think of these are typically the biggest acts in music, right? Or at one point in time, they were the biggest acts. Like it might be a legacy act, like because we've had rock bands and country artists, but like they're still are huge artists in their respective genres. So even if you're not familiar with the genre, you expect that whoever is performing for the Super Bowl gives you a medley of their best songs, right? And I said that even if Kendrick Lamar performs his best songs, it's still not like Super Bowl caliber because although Kendrick had an amazing 2024, and although Kendrick has a lot of accolades, right? He has a lot of Grammys and he's won a lot of awards, and of course he's gone platinum, but there are levels in terms of popularity, right? Like there's other artists that are more popular. Kanye West is still probably like Kanye West has bigger songs, bigger hits than Kendrick Lamar has ever dropped. We all know Drake has bigger hits and bigger songs than Kendrick Lamar has ever put out, right? Um, if we think about rappers is tough, whatever. But like we think about Usher, right? Usher, amazing hits, a catalog of hits. We want, a lot of us want Chris Brown to do the halftime show at some point in time, whether we think he's going to get a chance to or not. A lot of us feel that he could hold it down because his hits are big, right? We already know Beyonce, her hits are big and amazing. Rihanna, Bruno Mars. We've had Maroon 5, Travis Scott. Like we've had these The Weeknd, right? Katy Perry, right? We've had these huge, huge artists that have performed, and that's the expectation. That's the expectation. So even with that said, I thought like maybe I was like, I don't think that he can hold down the show, right? But a lot of people was like, "No, you hating, you hating. He got the hits. He's watch. He's gonna perform all his big hits. What are you talking about? He's gonna do this. He's gonna do that, right? He's gonna hold it down." And a lot of people thought that, like, yo, watch, Kendrick is for the culture. Yo, y'all ain't gotta worry. If you think that he ain't gonna pay homage to Louisiana artists, if you don't think that he gonna invite other people out to the show, you crazy. Watch, he gonna do this. He gonna do this. It's gonna be a all encompassing hip hop show. Like a lot of people had that hope. A lot of people had that hope. So then when Kendrick Lamar starts the performance, I'm listening. The imagery was amazing. I'll say this. So I'll say this off the gate. The Super Bowl performance looked amazing. It looked great. It looked great. I love the visuals. I love all that. You know what I'm saying? It was dope. It looked good. And he comes out. He on the Black Grand National, you know what I'm saying? He got the GNX out there. So it's looking like okay, it's good. But then I'm listening to the performance and I'm thinking like, yo, I don't really know that song that he's doing. Like I didn't even know what he was performing to begin the show. Well, come to find out, that was some unreleased freestyle, right? Like the way he starts the show is some unreleased freestyle. What was also dope about the halftime show was initially, like we see Samuel L. Jackson, he's playing Uncle Sam. So I already knew once they had my man in the costume, right? I knew, okay, we about to get some art here. We about to get some visuals here, right? So I was rolling. I was like, all right, the GNX on the stage. I'm like, okay, what we doing? And then Kendrick starts to rap, and I'm like, yo, I don't really know this song. I don't really know I don't really know what he's performing right now. And then he's going in, and then we're starting to hear songs from GNX, whatever. And then I'm just thinking like, okay, like, all right, where we going here? Where we going? So yeah, I don't really know what's going on, whatever. And then we hear Squabble Up, right? And then all the dancers are doing their thing. They're starting to hop out the car, you know what I'm saying, whatever. So I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? It makes you dance a little bit. I'm watching, I'm enjoying because I like GNX. I like that album. I thought that was a really good album. I was feeling the West Coast vibes, all that, whatever. So he does some squabble up, but I felt like he performed a little bit of too much squabble up because I know how Super Bowls are. It's a medley, so you kind of got to run through songs, whatever. So he's doing it. He got the guys on, set up, whatever. To get out the car. You could see the red, white, and the blue, right? Maybe Bloods, Crips, but also American flag, right? And then he does because yeah, he did all the squabble up pretty much. You know what I'm saying, and I was like, he did a lot of that. Then Humble comes on. So I was like, okay, Humble. Okay, all right. So now we getting into okay. I didn't know what you performed first. You give us Squabble Up. Okay, all right. You trying to wake us up a little bit. All right. And then now I'm thinking he's about to start running through all his hits. So he does a little bit of Humble. And then, the guys are lined up looking like the American flag, doing the head bobbing and stuff like that. Then we get a little bit of DNA. And then we get into Euphoria, and I was like, and and it's crazy because that was one of my least favorite tracks in the whole beef, right? And so like I recognized it, but I didn't fully recognize it, and I was like, and it was only like it was the second part of Euphoria. It wasn't even the beginning. Now, if he would have started off from the beginning, then I'd have been like, okay, okay. And then he did Man at the Garden, which I do love Man in the Garden, but apparently this was a live debut. It was the first time he ever did that. That's when he was at the light pole. He started like kind of doing like a little like, but like you know, he's kind of like whispering it. He's not really like rapping it out loud, but it's real shortened. And then he did Peekaboo. And I said, "Oh, okay, so we this is really you really are giving us the GNX performance, whatever." So I knew that he was going to perform some songs from this, but I didn't think that he was going to lean so heavily on this, right? So he does Peekaboo, and then, right, then everybody was like, okay, Peekaboo, there's a lot of dancing going on. In the middle of some of these songs, Samuel L. Jackson is like chiming in, giving us, like, basically setting the stage, giving us the symbolism of what's going on. Then we get SZA. We get SZA. So then, all right, this is the softer side. Okay, so I'm thinking he about to start running through some songs. He gives us Luther, and then he gets into one of his biggest hits ever, like of his career, which was All the Stars featuring SZA. It's really like both of them, but it's really SZA. It's him and SZA song. And then he starts to tease, and throughout the performance he starts to tease Not Like Us. You know what I mean? Acting like he's not gonna do it, acting like he's not gonna do it. And then he gives us Not Like Us. He gives us Not Like Us. And I think it got the reception that we kind of thought it would get. And then he ended it pretty much with TV off, right? And so I watched it and I was like, okay, like it wasn't. I see what he was trying to do. So I was like, well, it wasn't that bad. Like, but it wasn't automatically. I thought like this did not fit this stage. It didn't fit the stage. Like if he did that performance, that medley at the Grammys, which I know Grammys performances are never 13 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So like he probably wouldn't have been able to do all that. He probably needed the stage or like the field to even do all that imagery, but off the rip I was just thinking like that wasn't the best. Like and it's the thing is like him performing, it felt a little bit low energy, but like everything that went behind it, I felt like all right, he didn't do horrible. He didn't do horribly. But then I started looking at the reactions and I was like, "Oh, okay. Okay, people are being real right now, and they like off the rip. That shit was ass. That shit was mid. Oh, what? That was the halftime show. Like, and that's what I'm seeing all along the timeline, all along the timeline. It wasn't until the next day that all these other narratives start popping up. But like, if we keeping it a buck, because again, I didn't want to hate on it right away. I didn't want to hate on it. I said, okay, I see what he did there. But when I look on these timelines, when I look at the reaction, almost everybody that I saw was basically saying it was weak, whatever. There'd be a sprinkle or two of people saying like, "Oh, that was beautiful," right? Because here's the thing: if you're a Kendrick fan, you love that performance. You know what I mean, if you are pro black, right, and really into like being woke and stuff like that, you love that performance. If you are like a woke white person, right, and you try and be for the culture, try and be an ally, you love that performance. But in general, people that just wanted to just be entertained, they were not for the most part, right? The casual fan of just watching Super Bowl that don't know nothing about Kendrick Lamar, they didn't know how to react to it. So then the following day basically, and all throughout this week, it's been this talk of like, if you didn't like it, it's because you didn't understand the message, right? And the thing is though, my problem, I take issue with that because you don't have to be you not liking his performance is not an indictment on your intelligence. Let's just start there. If you did not like Kendrick Lamar's performance, that does not mean that you're dumb. It does not mean that you're not smart and that you don't know how to read between lines, because the thing is, it was pretty on the nose. There wasn't that much hidden. Now, of course, the deep divers, they go back into the show and they like, oh, obviously they adding sauce to it, right? They talking about, oh, well, because it looked like a game controller, and yeah, it did say game over, and like he's saying it's a game, and then but it's like it's a prison yard, and basically it's like we're playing the game and all this whatever. So like my thing is this: when you are watching a Super Bowl halftime show, for the most part, people, if you are gonna watch the show, people want to be entertained. They want to enjoy themselves, right? They just want to be. They want to, what I mean. But I'm very sure that a lot of people watch the halftime show and either they were watching to see like something else pop off, or they were watching and just were confused, right? And like again, Black History Month, it looked good. It was like, all right, I see the symbolism. I love the culture. I love all the culture that kind of exuded in that show. But in terms of this setting, I don't feel like it was the right fit. Now I did have a conversation with one of my former guests, man, Chad Visionaire, and he kind of went on about just how beautiful it was and all this. And my thing was, I was just saying that because a lot of people are going the extra mile and saying like, yo, this is a revolution, and we need to, you know this is bigger than entertainment. And yeah, Kendrick Lamar could have just appeased everybody and just did all his hits, but no, he wanted to go for a deeper message. And my thing is this though. Who is that? My biggest thing when you're saying that people didn't get the message, well then who is the message for, right? Because here's the thing. In the black community, right? We don't need any more symbolic change. We don't need any more symbolic gestures of change and of power and things like that. We need actual change. We need actual activism. We need things to kind of get moving, right? We don't need it feels like it feels like hashtag activism, right? Like I've talked about hashtag activism where, everybody's saying Black Lives Matter, but then ain't nothing changing. Everybody's saying how this Super Bowl performance, because it's a big stage, oh, this is the message, like this is what we need to send, but like for who? Because the people that need it the most, right? The people that are oppressive, right? The people that need it the most, they not receiving that halftime show anyway. And I feel like black people, we don't need to see that more. We already know what we're up against. We already know that the chips are stacked against us. So why do we need another reminder of that? Right? Because that's all this was. It was talking about all these different things, right? Mass incarceration, black bodies not being valuable, black people dying, the country not being for us, even though it was built by us, right? Like we already know that. We already know that. So I feel like I just feel like something like this falls on deaf ears. Like, automatically, it falls on deaf ears because the people who you want to inspire, or the people that you want to teach, for real, the people that you really want to teach, they not receiving that message. These were the people that were basically eating during the halftime show and kind of getting back to their parties, and these are the people that took a smoke break. These are the people that started playing beer pong in the middle of the show, right? These are not people that there's not people that's looking at this show and saying like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. We need to do this for black people, right? So if it's for us, if the message is for us, I feel like we don't need the message anymore because we already know, right? We need to actually start doing stuff about things. But a show at the Super Bowl is not the vehicle to get that going, especially as much as you think it is, it's not the vehicle to get things going. Now, But that's how I feel about it. If I had to rate the show, because it wasn't horrible. It wasn't horrible. I'm not gonna say it's horrible. I would say at the most it's a B minus, but for real, it's a C plus performance, right? Like who would because automatically we're comparing it to other shows, and obviously I'm gonna compare it to black artists, right? So like it definitely it's not top five. It's definitely it's not top five all time at all, right? But like it wasn't better than last year's show, right? Usher did his thing, man. Usher had he had to he also did not perform hits, but it was because he had to leave stuff off. He had to leave hits off. That's how many hits and Usher understood the assignment. So it wasn't better than Usher's performance. For me, matter of fact, let me just go back in no particular order, the five best Super Bowl performances are Usher, Beyonce, Michael Jackson, Prince, and then Dr. Dre and Snoop and everybody and the whole collective. And that's the thing. Kendrick Lamar was featured on a Super Bowl halftime show, and that the little snippet that he did, whatever he did in that show, that was better than everything that he did there, like in terms of performance, right? I heard a lot of people saying that basically, like when we got hip hop artists, it's hard for a hip hop artist to be up there solo. Now, Kendrick Lamar is the first solo rap artist to go up there on that stage, solo rap artist to go up there on the stage, and I don't know if we're gonna get another one. Let's just say that. I don't know if we're gonna get another one unless I don't think Kanye West is ever gonna get the look now because of what he just the way he moves, the way he talks. Kanye West is never getting the show. Drake has a little bit too much pride, and I don't think he's gonna. Even though that's what we might need, I don't think he's not in the foreseeable future, like not in the next 5, 10 years when Drake is not stepping on that stage. Lil Wayne, Lil Wayne wanted to do it. Lil Wayne wanted to do it. I think I ain't gonna lie. Even a drugged up, coked out, smoked out Wayne is still putting on a better show because Lil Wayne would have known to it would have been a Young Money show. It would have been Lil Wayne, Young Money, and Cash Money, and it would have been a celebration. And I think that's what people want. Now, everybody that's talking about they want a message or that it's deeper than music, it's deeper than the Super Bowl. It's like, sure, it's deeper, but sure. Let me grant you that. Let me grant you that. Yes, his performance was deeper than a Super Bowl performance, but that's the problem, though. And again, I feel like if you're sending a message, you got to be mindful of who your audience is because the majority of people did not receive that the way that you wanted it to receive it. Now there's a lot of like I said there's a lot of people of different cultures that are looking and they're like oh like yeah I'm happy about that, but again these are people that ain't about to help us and do nothing for us anyway. So is it gonna ignite us to make our own change? I doubt it, man. I doubt it. And here's the thing: he would have been universally praised if he would have kind of did what did what he was trying to do, then 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 he would have been universally praised. But the fact that he kind of like you know let us off the hook there, it wasn't what I think he anticipated it to be. So what do you think, man? What did you think about the halftime show? Again, you're entitled. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Apparently, the stats have come out, and he broke the record for most watched halftime show. The previous record was like 133 point something million, and I think 133.4, and then Kendrick Lamar had 133.5 or 133.6, one of the two. And apparently, it was a more watched show than Michael Jackson, and now people are crowning Kendrick Lamar. I mean, I can't argue with the numbers. Obviously, it's different now. There's a lot more screens now, right? There's a lot more screens to get counted for. People could have been streaming it on Tubi. You could have been watching it on cable, and then you could have had it on your phone. You know what I'm saying? So like it's I think it's a little I don't think it's the same kind of comparison. Michael Jackson's accomplishment was way more impressive because it was probably global. It was probably globally people were just tuning in to see Michael Jackson perform. And then, the technology wasn't as advanced as it is today. So like the fact that you get 133 million views on a halftime show back in the 90s versus 133 million today, not to shit on 133 million, but it's levels, man. It's levels. So I'm not about to crown him nothing. I don't want to get into the whole Drake stuff, but obviously Kendrick Lamar is still worried about Drake. You know what I mean? And to be honest, even though we expected him to do Not Like Us, it probably would have been even more powerful for him to not do Not Like Us. That's just a thought. I mean, if he was decided like, you know what, I'm gonna let this ride. I'm not worried about that right now. I'm I'm past that. I already won. I'm already past it. I think even he would have got even more. I think he would have got way more universal respect. So, and that's my problem too. Like you can't be about it can't be about a revolution and be a diss at the same time because a lot of this was still shots and diss at Drake. So, what do you think though? What do you think? Did you like the halftime show? Let me know in the comment section. What do you think about it? But all right, man. Let's yeah, I spent a lot of time. See, we might not get to some of these topics because I said I said we are gonna spend a little bit more time on some of these topics than others. And that yeah, that definitely took the wind out of the sails, man. There's so many layers of that we can talk about with that performance, but I don't want to get into all that, whatever. I probably like to talk. You know what? When I get a guest on here, I would probably like to talk about it a little bit deeper. I know some people might not care about it, but we gonna break down the science, man. We're gonna break down the science. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. All right, let's sticking with football. Sticking with football. You know what I mean? Y'all seen that Josh Allen won the MVP, and a lot of people are upset about Josh Allen winning the MVP because they feel stats wise that Lamar Jackson was probably the better option. And I could see why people say that. But last year when Lamar Jackson won, he didn't have the best stats. So, like, by that logic, people that are upset that Lamar Jackson didn't win the MVP are not following the logic of the previous year because Lamar Jackson didn't necessarily have the best stats, but he had like some big wins. Like people thought last year that the Ravens were primed to go to the Super Bowl. They were gonna beat the Chiefs, right? They were gonna dethrone them and be the ones to go. And obviously they didn't get done in playoffs. But that's why Lamar Jackson won the MVP was based off of his impact and his wins. The reason why Josh Allen won the MVP is because of his impact and wins, right? Josh Allen lost two of his best receivers last year. He lost Stephon Diggs and then Gabe Davis, which was one of his top receivers. They both went to different teams in the offseason. Um, Probably lost. I mean, they did get Amari Cooper, which he was like a shell of himself. He wasn't the same player. So Josh Allen, like he kind of transformed his game. He became way more efficient. Josh Allen like led the league in interceptions last year, right? So to improve and be a guy that had less than double digits interceptions and turnovers, and to not have all the weapons that you had in the previous year, but to win more games and to win bigger games and to get to the AFC Championship game. Although this is a regular season award, he had bigger wins though in the regular season. He did not beat the Ravens head to head in the regular season, but he did beat the Chiefs, right? And yeah, yeah. So I think that's why he won. He won based off of his impact on the game and his wins and his efficiency. And I think, maybe it's a little bit of voter fatigue, but I think that he deserved it, right? So I'm not mad that Josh Allen won the MVP. Again, we had that conversation a week or two ago and talking about the impact. I bet you, although Josh Allen's happy that he won the MVP, I bet you he would trade the MVP to get a chance, just to get a chance to play in the Super Bowl. And Cam Newton talk about oh yeah, it's more impactful to win the MVP. It's not. It's not. Like, congratulations, pat yourself on the back, but it's not more impactful than a Super Bowl ring. And I bet your bottom dollar, I bet your bottom dollar, right, that Josh Allen would trade his MVP that he just won just to play in the Super Bowl, not even win it, not even win it, just to get a chance, just to get a taste of it. He would trade that MVP. I know Lamar Jackson would trade both of them MVPs to get a taste of the Super Bowl. So that's here. That's that on that though. But what do you think? Do you think that Josh Allen deserved the MVP? Leave a comment. Leave a comment below. All right, off of sports. Let's just talk a little bit about what's going on in the government right now, man, and just a little bit about what's happening. So, um, we all know that you know Trump is the president again. And this year, because I seen him talk on TV. He said, yeah, man, when I was the 47th president, I didn't really know anybody out here in Washington. I didn't have the connections, and now this is different. This is a different regime, and when you look at it politically, yes, it's a red wave. I mean, they have control of the House, they have control of the Senate, and then he did a lot of work. He did a lot of work in his 4 years to set the stage to where you got six Republican uh, Supreme Court justices and only three Democratic or left leaning Supreme Court justices. So like the courts are stacked, Congress is stacked, right? And then now he's basically stacking, and doing this thing in the executive branch. And what he decided to do was, he came into this and he employed and sought the help of Elon Musk, right? So the arguably the richest man in the world, and probably, but also the most controversial rich man in the world, Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, man, he's already a mouthpiece for some wild thoughts and wild things. And he decided to put him in place. And he's a part of this new department called the Department of Government Efficiency, which is called Doge. And so basically, Elon Musk is like a consultant for government spending, and right now he's basically it's like the president just like hired his boy to come on, like, yo, I'm gonna bring my boy on, like he ain't in the government, but I got my homie coming in here, and he about to just start checking stuff out. Now, on one hand, I do agree that the government should not be wasting taxpayer dollars. Like, I'm never gonna defend the government wasting our money. I'm never gonna defend that. So what's happening right now is the United States is basically the United States government is in an audit right now. They're in the middle of an audit, and like Elon Musk is doing inventory on everything. And what they're discovering is in just different departments all across, right? Because what they decided to do, they decided to freeze spending and funding for stuff. And right now they're in the middle of an inventory and an audit. And I actually don't have no problems with them finding inequities and overspending of certain things. What I have a problem with is them making every single thing political, right? Because the problem with this, what's going on is, first problem is that Elon Musk is not an elected official. Like, nobody chose him to do this role, even though this is a role. It's not even a role that really is supposed to exist, but no one elect the people did not choose Elon to do this, right? So that's one thing. He's not an elected official. And the other thing that's wrong with this is that everything that they're pointing out, it's one thing if you point out that there's some overspending, but they're politicizing every single dollar. They're politicizing everything. And what they're doing is, I feel like they're just looking at numbers, right? And even if you go line by line and looking at stuff, they're just looking at numbers, but not looking at everything else that's tied into some of these programs, that's tied into some of these organizations, that's tied into some of this funding. And they are just looking at everything as a number, not realizing that there are people. These numbers, this money is representative of people. And what they're doing is I feel like they're just kind of, even though they're telling us what they're doing, they're blindly just cutting things without looking at the consequences. Now, instead of just saying like, hey, you cannot spend money on this, this, and this anymore, they're just like, nope, we're just gonna get rid of this. We're gonna get rid of this, we're gonna get rid of this, get rid of this. And now what's happening is that all these cuts and all this spending freezes and all this type of stuff like that, it's causing like a ripple effect, and it's affecting the good stuff that comes from some of these programs, right? And it's that's a problem. That's a problem. When you look at everything as the country is not a business, right? Even though everybody think it's a good idea, hey, yo, we should look at run the United States like a business, or like, oh, that doesn't necessarily fix the economy, because the economy is everybody, right? The economy is everybody. If you're running the country like a business, you're only there to help the people that are running the business, right? Corporations and businesses, right? They're not in business to help everyone, but that's what the government is essentially there to do. The government is there, if they are spending money, it is to help the greater good, right? But if you're running a business, it's not about the greater good. It's about profit. It's about keeping your head above water and being rich. So all these cuts, you're just looking at them at like just line item dollar amounts, but like, yo, you're taking money out of people's mouths now. And again, what I just said before, I said they're politicizing everything. So what they're making it seem like is like everything that has been wasteful and spending is because there's these greedy Democratic politicians that have just been pocketing money like all along, and like it's paying them. Like that's what there's every cut and everything that they're discovering, they're just politicizing it. The problem with that is, and the problem with that is that there's a lack of transparency in the sense of, just because you see something happening in the last 4 years, right? Or something that's already been in place, how far back are we going? Are we going back 8 years ago? Are we looking at because every government has wasteful spending, right? And yes, we want to cut. I agree with that. We want to cut down on wasteful spending, but like let's keep it a buck. Like, how long has some of this spending been going on? How long has some of these numbers been on the books? Because I want to know what did Donald Trump and his administration the first time, when he was the 47 when he was the 45th, yeah, when he was the 45th president, what wasteful spending, because you can't tell me that there was no wasteful spending under his watch, whatever. So that's the thing. We can look at these things, and we can make headlines of all this spending, and like make people shocked, but that's all, again, that's propaganda for people to kind of grow a disdain and hate for the other political party. And that's the thing. We live in a two-party system. We like That's what it is. What it feels like right now is that we only want a one-party system, and that's never been great, right? We can get into the history of like just having one central government and everybody having to be aligned with one central government and one ideology, and what that kind of looks like in the surface. But we are getting away from our American ideals, as opposed to like having different thoughts and being able to come together. What they would want is they think that they think of, there's only one way to think about things. There's only one ideology. There's only one political party, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous. And the other political party is not your enemy. It's not your enemy. It's just another perspective. It's just another way to look at things. And like that's what I'm saying when I say he's politicizing everything. He's putting them against each other and making one side feel like the villain and they're the bad guy, and the other side is like the savior and they're the hero and they're doing everything right. And we all know that's not the case. So what I want to see moving forward, if we're gonna, I think we can stop the wasteful stuff, whatever, but we cannot just freeze certain departments. And we cannot give civilians, just random civilians, we cannot just give them access to highly classified information without them getting properly um without having proper security clearances. Like I don't mind civilians doing some of these jobs, but like let's vet them and let's get them certified and trained and so that it's above board because it looks away. It looks shady, man. And the only headlines that we're getting are things that are perceived to be passed and the spending wasted by Democrats, and we're just making it seem like no, no, yeah, no, the Republican Party, they don't do any wasteful spending. Everything they spend their money on is good for the country, and we all know that that's a farce, right? That has to be false, though. So, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? What do you think about what's going on? We can get into it. I plan to have Montez Parker back on here. We're gonna talk a little bit about Trump and some of this type of stuff. I want to get my boy Stu back on here, man, and just chop it up with him. Just about a lot of these different topics and what's going on. We definitely got a guest coming up in the next couple weeks too, a rapper from around my way. And we're gonna talk about some of this like Drake and Kendrick stuff and Super Bowl performance on a deeper level. But before we go, real quick, two things before we go. So real quick, talking about AI. So AI it's not avoidable, man. And for real, if you want to advance nowadays, you have to learn AI. And you have to be familiar and comfortable with AI if you want to take anything that you're doing to the next level. So AI is something that we can embrace, right? AI is not the end all be all. But over the last several weeks, right, um, tech stocks have been up and down. It's been real volatile, right? Because what happened was we know OpenAI, ChatGPT, that's like the biggest thing going on, right? And Silicon Valley has spent billions of dollars creating this, and like they're putting all this money into it. Nvidia, which is a publicly owned company that does a lot of this stuff in relation to AI, and they make the processors that do all that type of stuff. Um, they're one of they're like a $1 trillion company, right? And at least that their evaluation has been that. But like they've been kind of going up and down because there's been a new player in town. So all this talk about TikTok and Red Note and China and things like that, right? Well, there's a Chinese AI, a big Chinese AI company called DeepSeek AI. And the big and what when that went public or when that kind of got put on the forefront, it made tech investors scared because they found out that like yo they built this program or they built this AI that is apparently just as good or maybe better than OpenAI and at a fraction of the cost. They said it only cost $6 million to build DeepSeek AI while OpenAI and ChatGPT has cost billions of dollars, like $30 billion to create this, right? So it's made like Nvidia's it went down, other stocks have went down because it's like like are we investing in something that's garbage? I mean, this is supposed to be cheaper and it's supposed to be just as good. Not so fast, not so fast. So what's come out though is it's funny. An interesting study has come out, and researchers and analysts have found out that DeepSeek AI has an 83% fail rate. All right. So that's good news. That's good news for America. That's good news for American tech, right? Because 83% fail rate when the fail rate is supposed for other AI systems is like maybe in like the low 60s or even maybe 50% in the 50s. 83%. So and when they do this, right, they're trying to figure out like for when you ask it for factual information and you ask it questions for and to give you factual answers, 83% of the time it's wrong. 83% of the time it's wrong. So, and you know, a lot of people were saying like they're trying to pass laws to where like they want it to be illegal for you to download DeepSeek AI. That and you know, they're saying like that type of like you shouldn't feed AI too much, you know what I'm saying? Because again, AI could take over one day. But they're saying with DeepSeek AI, anything that you kind of input it to it, right? It's going to the Chinese government, which is obviously it could be dangerous, right? It's bad. It's you know maybe anti-American. But the fact that they boasted this and they kind of sold this as being better for cheaper for a fraction of the cost, right? Because it's completely free to the public. That was the big thing too. DeepSeek AI was completely free. ChatGPT is free to a certain extent, but like you gotta pay for it. And basically, I think you're paying just to kind of for them to kind of make their money back, so to speak. But yeah, I don't want something free that's 83% of it is wrong. You know what I'm saying? So that's good news for American tech. And it gives us confidence that's like, okay, no, they are further away than we thought they were. I mean, it feels like they were closer than you know, DeepSeek and kind of ruining tech stocks because a lot of people are investing a lot in our open AI and hoping that it grows and becomes something. But apparently, we don't have nothing, at least for now, we don't have anything to worry about because it has an 83% fill rate. But what do you think about that? Are you into tech? Are you into all this like nerdy stuff? Maybe not, maybe not. Um, but yeah, so that's good news though. That's good news. And last but not least, moving on from that. Because again, I'm gonna get into some of this type of AI stuff because there's some controversy that I've been seeing in some of these headlines. But last thing I want to talk about is a rapper, man. We're gonna talk about accommodations real quick. And so have y'all seen? And the story itself is old. It's about 2 weeks old now. So there's a rapper from the Midwest. It's either Detroit or Chicago. Her name is Dank Demoss, and she went viral because apparently she called for a lift, and when she called for a lift, the Lyft driver refused to give her a ride. Right? He said he couldn't give her a ride. Now, the reason for that is because the driver said that she would. I don't think he said it directly, but basically he indicated that she was a little bit. She was too big for his car. She was too big for his vehicle, and the headlines went out that like, oh, you know, she contacted Lyft and like, yo, they're gonna get him fired and you know all this controversy about it. Well, Dank DeMoss, she landed on the Breakfast Club this past week, and she's on there, and like she is a bigger woman. You know what I mean, and it's beyond plus size. You know what I'm saying? She is unhealthily big. Like she's a big woman, but like it's very unhealthy. It's morbidly obese. You know, I don't know what kind of performances she does or how popular she is, or if she really, you know, or if this kind of incident kind of is helping to propel her career, or whatever. But like she's a really big girl, and she basically came out and said that like some of the headlines are fake and things like that, and she didn't like call anybody, but she's basically telling the story about you know getting picked up and things like that, and she's saying like, yo, I know how big I am, I know what I can fit in, and she feels like she was discriminated against because of her size. Now I just look at that situation and I'm thinking like, sure. Like, you know, it's probably wrong, but I mean, if it's a Lyft driver, it's not like Lyft doesn't own a fleet of cars. These are personal people's cars. Now, I know this person works for a certain company, but like for me, if I don't drive Lyft, but like you know what I mean? If I'm worried, maybe he don't got maybe that guy didn't have the best tires. Maybe he didn't have the best shocks or something like that. And he didn't feel confident of being able to safely give her a ride because as big as she is, she can't put on a seatbelt. Like so yeah, she might be able to fit into the car, which is it was kind of it was kind of wild because I was like Charlemagne was like, yo, you can't fit in you can't fit in that car. She's talking about like she fit into a PT Cruiser. He was like, you can't fit into no PT Cruiser. And she was like, nah, I can. Like, I rode in this kind of car. I ride in this kind of car all the time. I could ride in that car. So maybe it was maybe unprofessional of the guy to refuse a ride. If I had to make any accommodation for her, I probably would have like, yo, I'm sure I don't know how Lyft works like on the side of the Lyft drivers, but I would have been like, yo, can y'all send somebody else like with an XL, but like charge her this rate and what I don't know how that works, but I feel like there could have been ways to kind of like make it better for her. But one of the things that she said was that she feels like big people, because she called them F people, because she said she didn't want to say the word fat. She said like almost like that's like a slur. But she's like, yo, F people, they deserve the same accommodations as the LGBT community. And I was kind of confused by that because I'm like, well, what physical accommodations does the LGBTQ community get? Like, I don't know of any physical accommodations other than maybe a genderless bathroom, right? Or maybe, if we get into that controversy of using the bathroom of your biology versus your perceived say whatever, like if we get into that, sure, that's an accommodation. But like, what other accommodations do you see fit for big people? And I also feel like it's not the same thing, like because LGBT they might get some accommodations, but they're not physical. Typically, they're not physical. But when we talk about what are they supposed to do? So they had to make an accommodation at the Breakfast Club. She said, "Do y'all got a bigger chair?" They pulled up a sofa so she could sit on because she wasn't gonna fit in a regular chair. I don't know, man. I think we need to stop promoting like body positivity. I don't know, man. It's kind of a farce. It's kind of a thing that we just kind of made up to make people feel good. That probably should focus their attention and energy on getting healthy, right? Like we shouldn't focus all our attention on, you know, accepting that. Like no, like these people are unhealthy. These people are in a bad position. And they would live a longer life if they stood to lose a little bit of weight. But like, because you start talking about airplanes and things like that. I'm like, yo, that it becomes a safety thing, man. Like you can't even strap yourself into a seatbelt. If you definitely can't fit into a certain ride at an amusement park. I feel like that should be the litmus test a lot of times. I mean, if you can't fit on outside of height being your issue, if you can't fit into an amusement park roller coaster, then you probably could stand to lose a couple pounds, man, and get a little bit smaller. But I don't know, man. That's my thoughts on that. That's my thoughts. I try to jam pack everything in here. Again, we talked a lot about the Super Bowl. We talked a lot about the halftime show. I try to sprinkle in some of these other topics, you know. But yeah, man. I'm. It's getting late. It's getting late. I gotta go. I hope you enjoyed the show, man. If you're still watching, I need you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Please leave a comment, man, for any of these topics that we're talking about. Share the content with anybody. But yeah, man, hit the bell for notifications if you haven't already. But I'm excited, man. Excited for the new off season. I'm ready for a new football season and free agency and everything to get underway. We still got some time on that. I did forget we didn't have time to talk about an update on Luka and AD, but like we'll get into that another time. Yeah, man. Football's over, man. We got to find something else to do with our lives, man. But if you're still watching, again, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment below, share the content, hit the bell for notifications. This is episode 181 of the 280 Plus podcast. I'm your host, Los Def, and I'm out, y'all. Peace.